This isn't really a prediction video. I've already made a prediction video. This is books that sound great and have a bit of a bookish geek out. So let's geek out. I'm making a speculative long list, a long list of books that I would be excited to read should they make it. By the way, my actual prediction video is linked in the description. Watch it after you watch this video, should you like. One of the books I've been really looking forward to reading, but I haven't got around to yet, is Before We Hit the Ground by Salari Fiamanya. Caught between his well-meaning yet misapprehending family, his boisterous friends, and his self-assured partner Ben, Olam struggles to fit in. All he ever wanted was to feel understood. But what does it mean to live authentically when the only thing changing faster than the world around you is the world within? A novel that is looking at race and sexuality. A debut novel from a Scottish author with Ghanaian roots, who, by the way, wrote this novel as he trains to become a GP. I mean, I'm actually torn between really wanting to read this and telling him to fuck off for being such a high achiever. But I want to read it more because I'm a hoe. This was released in February and there's not a lot of reviews for it at the moment. But of the reviews that do exist, they are all overwhelmingly positive. I know nothing about this author, but I'm imagining that he is somewhere between Caleb Azuma Nelson and Douglas Stewart. And now that I've said that aloud, I want to read this book even more, even though that's neither fact nor opinion, it's speculation and hope. This is a book I'm hoping to squeeze into my reading before the long list is announced. I mean, if the purpose of this video is to look for books that will excite or delight me, authors who have already produced books I love really would fit into that camp well. So I have to say I have my fingers well and truly crossed for The Girl Who Grew Big by Layla Motley. When Adela tells her parents she's pregnant, they immediately send her to her grandmother in Padua Beach. The intention is that she will leave her baby in the forgotten panhandles of Florida and resume her suburban life 9 months later as though nothing had happened. First, Adela meets Emery, a new mother determined to defy expectations of everybody around her and return to high school with her newborn baby strapped to her chest. Then she meets Simone, ringleader of the girls, a group of young mothers who create a village together in the back of a red truck, dancing, breastfeeding, and raising their children as well as themselves. But as they look for love, make and break friends, navigate the miracles of motherhood and the paradox of girlhood, Adela, Emery and Simone also find themselves on an inescapable collision course with one another. Second book syndrome is a thing, but early reviews of this are suggesting that Motley has produced something delicious, and I'm hoping for the big emotional impacts we got in certain scenes in her debut novel, Nightcrawling. Another author I really hope avoids the second novel syndrome is Patricia Lockwood. Her new novel, Will They Ever Be Another You, is coming on the 23rd of September, the same day as the Booker shortlist is announced. So while I think she is absolutely hilarious and I loved No One Is Talking About This, and I'm really looking forward to reading this book, I'm hoping it misses the long list. I also think Lockwood's style might not appeal to this year's judges as much as other years. So no Lockwood on the long list for me. Another author who I know is amazingly talented is Sarah Hall. I loved her last novel, Burnt Coat, and her next novel, Helm, is coming on the 23rd of August. Helm is a ferocious, mischievous wind, a subject of folklore and awe, who has blasted the sublime landscape of the Eden Valley since the dawn of time. Through the stories of those who obsess over the phenomenon, Hell's extraordinary history is formed. The nihilistic tribe who tried to placate Helm, the ancient Dark Age wizard priest who wanted to banish Helm, the Victorian steam engineer who attempted to capture Helm, and the farmer's daughter who loved Helm. But now, Dr. Salami Sutar, surrounded by infinite clouds and measuring instruments in her observation hunt, fear human pollution is killing Helm. Rich, wild and vital, Helm is a story of a unique life force and of a relationship between nature and people, neither of whom can weather life without the other. There are few authors I trust more than Hall to turn that description into something excellent. And with praise from 2021 Booker winner Damon Galgut and the very excellent author that is Benjamin Myers, I don't think anybody would be surprised to see Hall get her third Booker longlisting. I feel like Sarah Hall represents an author of proven quality, but there is another Sarah who represents much the same. Ripeness by Sarah Moss. It is the 60s, and just out of school, Edith finds herself travelling to rural Italy. She has been sent by her mother with strict instructions to see her sister, ballet dancer Lydia, through to the final weeks of her pregnancy, help at the birth, and then make a phone call which seals the baby's fate and his mother's. Decades later, happily divorced and newly energised, Edith is living a life of contentment and comfort in Ireland when her best friend Maeve receives a call from an American man claiming to be her brother. Maeve must decide if she will meet him, and she asks Edith for help. Sarah Moss releases a book every couple of years or so, and you just go out, read it, you give it 4 stars because she's good, but nothing to get super excited about. And then the reviews for this book came in. I didn't need a lot of convincing to read this. I just thought I'd save it for a time when I've read a couple of bad books in a row and I want something safe, something I knew was going to be good. Now, with the praise from literally everywhere, I'm asking, why haven't I prioritized this? This sounds great, and I have succumbed to the hype around this novel. All the positive reviews make this sound like a quality author who has just stepped up, which is also true of Katherine Chigi's latest book, The Book of Guilt. England, 1979. Vincent, Lawrence and Williams are the last remaining residents of a secluded New Forest home, part of the government's Sycamore scheme. Every day the triplets do their chores, play their games and take their medicine, under the watchful eye of 3 mothers: Mother Morning, Mother Afternoon and Mother Night. The nightmares are recorded in the Book of Dreams, the lessons are taken from the Book of Knowledge, and their sins are reported in the Book of Guilt. All the boys want is to be sent to the big house in Margate, where they imagine a life of sun, sea and fairground rides. But as the government looks to shut down the Sycamore homes, the triplets begin to question everything they have been told, gradually surrendering its dark secrets. The Book of Guilt is a profoundly unnerving exploration of belonging in a world where some lives are less valued than others. What I really love about this is the genre description of this book. Speculative, crime, mystery, literary, dystopian, science fiction, historical fiction. Could we just stick a bit of romance in there and go for the complete set? But I do love it when a book takes pieces out of genre fictions and puts them together in a new, unpredictable and unique way. Those books, as long as they're well written and all that, are great. But Chigi is not just a good author. She is an author who every book they seem to write seems to be better than her last book. A consistent upward projection. And that all makes this sound like one hell of a book, which is a not too subtle detour for my next pick. Hell of a Book won the National Book Awards in 2021. Can Jason Mott's next book, People Like Us, win the Booker? 2 black writers are trying to find peace and belonging in a world that is riven with gun violence. One is on a global book tour after winning a big prize. I wonder what prize that could have been. The other is set to give a speech at a school that has suffered a shooting. And as their 2 storylines merge, truth and antics abound in equal measures. Characters drink booze out of an awards trophy. Menace lurks in the shadows. Tiny French cars putter around the countryside. Handguns seem to hover in the air, and dreams endure all of the odds. Now, if you're a Percival Everett fan, you need to get into Jason Mott. Mott is hilarious, but he hits the big issues and can really devastate a reader with raw emotion. And I tell you, if that's not what Percival Everett is doing, what is he doing? A couple of authors who I really rate as a good chance, but I'm not putting on my list, are Jonathan Coe and his new novel, The Proof of My Innocence. Coe's brand of political fiction has a knack for blending the global with the personal and human in a way that I really love. But there's something about this work that just doesn't feel right for the Booker Prize, even though I acknowledge he's a quality author. Aussie Robbie Arnott is the first name I think of when I think of young Aussies who could really crack it on the international stage, and his new novel Dusk is getting rave reviews. Now maybe it is the Victorian in me, but I just can't bring myself to include a Tasmanian with only one head on the Booker Longlist. No, seriously, he's a very good writer. I just don't think his novels are the right fit for the judging panel this year. I'd be super excited to see the original by Nell Stevens make the long list, but I'm not sure it's right for the Booker Prize either. Women's Prize, yes, but Booker Prize, no, not really. Stevens produces fun, entertaining books that make you ponder things, but they're a little too commercial, however much I enjoy her craft. Going from too commercial to too literary, or maybe just too artsy, is the Mobius book by Katherine Lacy. This is a book that some people are calling literary fiction and other people are calling non-fiction. Lacy is an amazing talent, and anytime she writes a book, she needs to be considered for any prize she's eligible for, but I'm hoping that a work that dances that line between fiction and non-fiction doesn't make the long list, mostly because Lacy herself has called this her non-fiction debut. You're probably more interested in what I think will make the long list than what I think will narrowly miss out. So let's get back to my predictions, or should I say wish list, because that's really what this video is. Ordinary Saints by Neve Ni Mwalen. Brought up in a devout household in Ireland, Jay is now living in London with her girlfriend, determined to live day to day and not think too much about either the future or the past. But when she learns that her beloved older brother, who died in a terrible accident, may soon be made into a Catholic saint, she realises that she must at last confront her family, her childhood, and herself. Frankly, this is a book that needs to be about half as good as it sounds to be long-listed. A debut novel, so I don't know much about the author, but I know I said other books have had good reviews, but wow, this has better than good reviews. I will read this book before the Booker announces their long lists, and I am so excited to read this that I have decided to pay for it if my library doesn't get it very, very soon. Another book that I will read before the long list, if for no other reason than it's sat on my bedside table waiting for me to finish my current book, is A Room Above a Shop by Anthony Shapland. When two quiet men form a tentative connection, neither knows where it might lead. M has inherited his family's ironmonger's business, and B is younger by 11 years and can see no future in the place where he has grown up. But when M offers him a job and lodging, he accepts, as the two men work side by side in the shop. They also begin a life together in their one shared room above, the kind of life they never imagined possible and that risks everything if their public performance were to slip. Unfolding in South Wales over 3 years during the decades of Section 28 and the age of consent debates against the backdrop of HIV and the AIDS crisis, moral judgments and growing prejudices. This is a tender and resonant love story and a powerful debut. Much like The Troubles are to Irish authors, Section 28 is both a horrible part of their history and the perfect setting for a novel for queer authors. I just keep hearing that this novel is beautiful, this novel is emotional, and it's really short, so it's giving me Claire Keegan vibes. Again, not a fact, not even an opinion, another baseless comparison that makes me want to read this book. My current read is A Family Matter by Claire Lynch, and it is very, very good, but it is a little too similar to A Room Above a Shop for me to include it on this long list. However, I would be unsurprised if it makes the long list. Instead, I'm going to suggest a book with some thematic crossovers, but a completely different setting. India. Deviants by Santanu Bhattacharya. Vivian, a teenager in Indian Silicon Plateau, has discovered love on his smartphone, intoxicating, boundary-breaking love. His parents know he is gay, and their support is something Vivian can count on, but they don't know what exactly their son gets up to in the online world. For his uncle, born 30 years earlier, things were very different different. Mambro's life changed forever when he fell for a male classmate at the time, and in a country where the persecution of gay people was rife under a colonial-era law criminalising homosexuality. And before Mambro was his uncle, Sakuma, a young man hopelessly in love with another young man, but forced by social taboos to keep their relationship a secret at all cost. Sakuma would never live the life he yearned for, but his story would ignite and inspire his nephew and his grandnephew after him. And can I say, praise from Max Porter is never a bad thing when you're trying to make any long list. This is an author who is slowly building a reputation as a fine author. I kind of like when these prediction videos go off the beaten path and put something I had no idea existed on my radar, especially when they sound amazing. Pig by Matilde Prasia. Pigs are Valentina's safe place. When she feels overwhelmed, she lists the breeds until her mind becomes quiet again. Val struggles to live life without order. Every morning she reads the note that her flatmate Clara pins on the fridge, telling her what to wear, what to eat, before leaving for her job at a bookshop. Sometimes Val's colleagues invite her to drinks, but she never goes. She knows that Clara wouldn't be happy if Val socialised with others. As Clara told her plenty of times, who else would put up with her and her weird pig facts? But a chance encounter in a bookshop leads to an exciting opportunity. As Val steps into the world of other people, Clara tightens her grip. She isn't yet ready to let go of her favourite prey. This is giving me nesting vibes. They're both clearly about coercion. But is that a lesbian twist or is that flatmates? I'm not sure, but abusive relationships come in a variety of flavours and I'm really interested in that. Also, very definitely some coded neurodiversity going on in that. Probably not so coded once you read the book. Debut novels can be hard to judge, but sometimes a debut novel is not a debut book, and Heather Clark stunned non-fiction readers with her book Red Comet, a biography of Sylvia Clark, and now she's back with her fiction debut, The Scrapbook. Harvard, 1996. Anna is about to graduate when she falls hard for Christoph, a visiting German student. Captivated by his beauty and intelligence, she follows him to Germany, where charming squares and grand facades belie the nation's recent history and the war's destruction. Christoph condemns his country's actions, but remains cryptic about the part his own grandfather played. Anna, meanwhile, cannot forget the photo taken by her American GI grandfather at the end of the war, preserved in a scrapbook only she has seen. As Anna travels back and forth to Germany to deepen her relationship with the elusive Christoph, her perspective is powerfully interrupted by chapters that follow both of their grandparents during the war. One witnesses the plight of the Holocaust victims in the days after liberation and helped capture Hitler's eagle's nest, while the other fights for Nazi Germany. Their fragmented stories haunt Anna and her lover 2 generations later and may still tear them apart. I really love it how authors are now tackling World War II as the setting in new and different directions. I'm loving World War II not being a cliche. With Adebami Adebayo being one of the judges this year, I wonder if some African novels could make the long list. Regardless of her influence on the long list, it is never too hard to find a quality African fiction book. Necessary Fiction by Alagasa Osunde. Across Lagos, one of Africa's largest urban areas and one of the world's most dynamic cities, Osunde's characters seek out love for themselves and their chosen partners, even as they risk ruining relationships with their parents, spouses, families and friends. As the novel unfolds, a rolling cast, vibrantly active, stubbornly alive, brazenly flawed, as these characters grapple with desires, fears, time, death and God God, they form and break unexpected conditions, in the process revealing how they know each other, how they have loved each other, and how they have had their hearts broken in that pursuit. As they work to establish themselves in the city's lively worlds of art, music, entertainment, and creative commerce, we meet their collective and individuals' attempts to reckon with the necessary fiction they carry for survival. A Sunday's first book, Vagabonds, was a bit of a love it or hate it novel, but it did receive some big praise. But Necessary Fiction is really producing some big hype, and definitely a bit less love it or hate it if the early reviews are to be listened to. It is not out until the end of the month, but with Caleb Azuma Nelson praising the writing, I'm in awe of A Sunday's writing. Surely Azuma Nelson cannot be in awe of anybody's writing. He must have read his own books. So that is absurd praise. That is praise that simply cannot be ignored. Now, before I reveal my final and 13th book for this speculative long list, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to go over some of the books that I was very tempted to include but couldn't find a place for. This Kind of Trouble by Tushi Eze is a Nigerian-American second chance romance / forbidden love story with over 45 years between the timelines of the novel, and it manages to tackle aging and mortality as well. A combination of too many good books and not enough space made it hard for me to include this book, but it is sounding a little bit too commercial, and it did make me think it is more of a Woman's Prize contender than a Booker Prize. What We Cannot Know by Ian McEwan is a sci-fi novel, and I do love a bit of literary sci-fi, but I think I like it when the speculative author tries to be literary. The opposite can produce books that I find a little bit boring. And while I think McEwan is a quality author and that is a misplaced bit of doubt, I am sure this book would be great. I am definitely still reading it. I have just been burnt too many times by literary fiction authors thinking they can do sci-fi to get too excited about this one. Also, it's another one that has been released on the 23rd of September, which is just a rude date to release a book. Call Me Ishmael by Shialu Geo. This is a reimagining of Moby Dick where Ishmael is a cross-dressing girl, and it just sounds great queering up a novel that is already queer. But I do already have quite a few LGBT novels on my list, and Moby Dick, look, my feelings around Moby Dick are complicated. I would probably go so far as to say that if you don't have complicated feelings around Moby Dick, you probably haven't read the novel. It is really, really bad and absolutely brilliant. It's a fantastic book, but I don't need to know how to tie another knot. We already have an entire chapter on it, Herman. I will read this. I can actually see this book being brilliant, but it is leading into the parts of the novel that I am not so in love with, and that could go either way. Endling by Maria Riva is a novel about a Ukrainian scientist who breeds rare snails and who dates Westerners to fund her work. It is looking at arranged marriages in the Ukraine, or more to the point, the online marriage industry between Westerners and the Ukraine. It sounds great, and I have no excuse for not including this on the long list. That's why we're reading it for my Patreon book club this month, and I'd like to thank my wonderful patrons for their support and say that if you'd like to discuss a novel about breeding rare snails and exploring the murky world of finance and consent in the marriage industry in the Ukraine, why not consider signing up for my Patreon. The last novel I cut from my long list was The Dissenters by Yosef Raka, which is an Egyptian novel about a woman whose life mirrors that of her country's history. A hijab-wearing, self-made divorcee working as a feminist activist during the Arab Spring. That sounds wonderful, and I'm really curious about the character. She sounds like somebody who really knows who she is. This would be the 14th book on my speculative long list if I could go that far, but there are too many good reviews online and not enough amazing reviews, and that's why I decided to drop it from my 13. Instead, I'm finishing my book a dozen in Scotland. Muckleflugger by Michael Pedersen. Life on a remote island is turned upside down by a stranger's arrival, testing bonds of family and tradition and leaving a young dreamer's future hanging in the balance. It's no ordinary existence on the rugged island of Muckleflugger. The elements run riot, and the very rocks that shape the place begin to shift under their influence. The only human inhabitants are the lighthouse keeper known as the Father and his otherworldly son, Ooze, them and the occasional lodger to keep the wolves from the doors. When one of those lodgers, Firth, a chaotic rider, arrives from Edinburgh, the limits of the world the keeper and his son cling to begin to crumble. A tug-of-war ensues between Firth and the lighthouse keeper for his son's affections and his future, as old and new ways collide and life-changing decisions loom. What will the tides leave standing in their wake? These are themes that we are very used to seeing on a Booker long list. They're timeless scenes, and they allow for a lot of variation and the development of some very conflicted characters, which are all great elements for a novel. It's another book with amazing reviews, and it comes with the praise of Bernardine Evaristo, an author whose taste I trust, despite the book she awarded the Women's Prize Longlist when she was head judge. It sounds like a cracking novel about the coming together of two worlds, progress and difference. As I said, this is not a prediction video, but one of the joys of creating prediction videos over the years has been discovering all of the new and interesting sounding novels that are eligible and growing my TBR and introducing all of these books to you and telling you about them. So when I did a prediction video based only on books I read, I thought, well, I have to do something like this. So don't take these predictions as predictions, take them as books that you should check out if you're interested in them. This is a long list that would really excite me. Before We Hit the Ground, The Girl Who Grew Big, Helm, Ripeness, The Book of Guilt, People Like Us, Ordinary Saints, A Room Above a Shop, Deviants, Pig, The Scrapbook, Necessary Fiction, and Muckleflugger. I'll leave my actual prediction videos linked in the description. And instead of telling me what you think will make the Booker long list, what I'd really like you to do instead is tell me which book or books that you have yet to read would you be excited or delighted to see make the Booker long list later this month. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye bye.